All right. That was very official. So
Nice.
yeah. So good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on your Friday morning. This is our little experiment here, and we hope it provides value a little to you guys on your more so than you would otherwise have this Friday morning. Um, Not going to say smash the like button, but I will say this: do subscribe to the channel if you can, and the notification thing, so that way, if we do things on the channel that we are planning on doing, you'll get notified of those things. And from now on, YouTube will also remind you that something's upcoming. So please do that if you can. And yeah, so welcome, Abe. Abe's joining us for the first time on Broker Brew.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. How are you guys all doing? Hopefully doing well. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Yeah, absolutely. There you go. Oh, by the way, there is the comments on YouTube, so go ahead and ask any questions there. We'll get to them as we go, or maybe at the end if some questions there. And I saw some people saying already some comments there. So yeah, so let's get started. So kind of have a topics we want to discuss. We first want to touch on why do we do this? Why Broker Brew, right? And I'll start on that. Just when we first conceived of doing a weekly meeting like this, and then it went to 2 weeks, was really just to provide some leadership, some thought leadership for the agents, and to make people feel a sense of connection and community while maybe there was some uncertain times, right? When this year started, definitely a lot of uncertainty in the economic macro, as well as in the real estate market, as well as even in global events. So we thought it'd just be nice to connect more frequently and have a forum where we could discuss things and talk about what we're all going through and that sort of thing. So that's really why it started. But Abe, what do you think about Broker Brew and what you're hoping to allow it to become too?
Yeah, I'm super excited. I think Matt and I are in the kind of routine of having some really good lengthy conversations about a lot of stuff, including stuff in real estate, including the market, including things that we can do to help our agents, but also like crypto, right? What's a good comfortable pair of shoes, right? Like wine or alcohol, and just cars, all kinds of stuff. And so what I'm excited about with this is it just becomes like a conversation, I think, that me and Matt have, that's carried on to kind of this format, and kind of invite you guys in, but really want to get your feedback too on what you think you'd like to hear about. So we'd love to cover current events, the latest things in the market, stuff that bring value to you as we talk about it, and not so much like teach on it, but just really have a conversation, and kind of invite you guys into the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. No. And I think that's the thing is, from our perspective, we're looking at things sometimes that, agents aren't having to think about, or not having the same conversations. So it's good to bring you into our world as far as brokers and what we're considering and what we're looking at. And, you know, that's where I think that sometimes I feel when I watch podcasts of people maybe that are contemplating in their daily lives a completely other set of information and data, it's helpful to get those insights, right? So yeah, so as far as one of the things that we wanted to talk about today was, speaking of podcasts, was one of the podcasts that I recommend to people just to have those kind of insights from people that are in a different realm than most of us, is the All In podcast, right? Which is a group of for mostly like Silicon Valley types, investors, venture capitalists, former founders, people that have made impacts on pretty significant companies that we've all heard of. And they talk about just current events, economics, investing, that sort of thing. But one of them a few months ago, and I've mentioned this before, but he was talking about building equity in a service type business. And he even mentioned brokerages specifically, and saying if your brokerage is doing transactions, how do you grow your equity, right? You're going to have to be always working for your trading time for money, right? You're always going to be working. And so the way to build some sort of equity and value beyond just doing deals is to actually compound in your business through building equity within your client base and starting with a bigger base every year of customers, a bigger base of brand equity, with an audience, whether it be a geographical area, whether it be a social group, and also compounding in your skills and compounding in your ability to be more effective, so you can earn at a higher level as well. And I find that, that's where I see. But the luxury market, right? For instance, a lot of people want to get into the luxury markets, but if you're not compounding in the skill sets or compounding in your abilities to consult on a higher level, even if you had an at bat with a luxury person, right, Abe, it's going to be a little more challenging, because they're not necessarily going to respect what you bring to the table if they're a little more sophisticated, right?
Right. Yeah, it's almost like a leaky bucket, right? I think a lot of us spend time, getting deals in through the door, but maybe the compounding effect we really need to focus on is stopping the leak so that the bucket can continue to build. In the luxury market, again, I'm fairly new. I jump in and out, do a deal or two here and there. Luckily, this year I had the opportunity to be a part of a pretty big one. But yeah, I think about that. Like, how am I going to take this and leverage this, so that more deals can come out of it? So it's not just one and done, right? But what can I do to really take this and kind of build on it? And so it's something I'm discovering myself and doing an exploration on, but feeling like there's a really good opportunity there, and I don't want to miss out on it.
Right. Well, and I think that even you recognized, right, like that there's equity that also comes in the form of like being sort of the neighborhood expert, right? Like being the person that knows, especially in those luxury markets, right? And that sort of, and I'll share this real quick. We're going to talk about this in the three, kind of ties in. But if you look at this here, and again, this is just something I put together. So, but if you look at these three circles that I figure are the ways to really build that equity, it's really with your SOI, with the geographical farm, and then to really build equity in a momentary like time is with opportunities around like listings. So you have an opportunity, you have a listing. How do you leverage that into more business and compound on that listing? Because there used to be no expression like listings have babies or you list, you last. I mean, the point is listings do create other opportunity that you can try to capture in that same sort of compounding way. So speaking of that, like the geo area, right? There was value in what you found, right? Like with someone that was local, right?
Yeah. Just talk about it, I guess. So I did have an opportunity to list a pretty big size property in Newport Coast. It was for a really good friend of mine, who I've known since college. And that's how the conversation started. But I remember when he called me first and said, shortly after he built the house and moved in, he was like, "Hey, I'm feeling like moving. I'm not feeling like this is for me, the house, the lifestyle in Newport Coast." And he was much more drawn back to where he had just moved from, which is Hawaii. And so I remember having that conversation, and then just a couple weeks later, him saying, "I want to sell the house. Let's do this." And unfortunately, I had planned a vacation to Hong Kong, and he wanted to move on it quickly. He wanted to make sure that he didn't lose any days, because the market seemed to be kind of slowing down in real time. And so, as I thought about the listing and how to do this right, I had to admit a few things to myself. One, I'm not a luxury broker, right? This would be the biggest deal I would do in residential real estate ever for me by a lot. I think before that, the biggest deal was somewhere around like $9 million or so. So this was like over triple that, right? We came out a listing price of $39.9 million. And so
Right.
I had to admit that there's a lot that I don't know, and I don't know what I don't know. And then two, it was in an area, Newport Coast, which love playing the golf course there, have been to the resort, have walked the beaches and all that, but just don't know the ins and outs of real estate there and who's who. I can look online and see who's done volume there and understand maybe what real estate agents to look out for or connect with. But there are a lot of like things that you're not going to get from, a picture and their volume, right? Who's good to work with, who really has the buyers, who is more cooperative than others, who's more competitive and feels more territorial that you're on their turf, right? So all these things kind of were mounting in my mind. I realized, hey, to do a good job for my friend, I really need to talk to some area experts. And I really just went down the list. There's about 5 agents there that did tremendous volume, right?
Right.
And I had to go through and see if there's some way to glean from them the knowledge I needed to make sure I did a good job on this listing, or to partner with them, right? And what was cool about it is I went through the list. Some people didn't call me back, right? I didn't mention to them, hey, I want to work with you on this listing. I just asked them, I have this listing, would love your thought on it, because you're an expert here. And
Right.
literally only 2 people really engaged me in that conversation. And again, there was no strings attached there. It was just, hey, I'd like to show you the listing. One was someone who had, out of 5 listings in that neighborhood, in that gate, he had 4 of them. And so already I was intrigued, like, man, there's got to be something to this guy, or he must know the ins and outs. And sure enough, when we met, he just took the time to really give me value, right? And tell me about the history of sales in this neighborhood, who's who, and all that. And so, long story short, ended up asking to co-list with me because I felt that was doing my friend as well as this listing justice, and giving it the best chance to find a high price and to really find a buyer in this market.
Right. Yeah. No. And I mean, that takes a huge amount of, I think, humility and wisdom, right, to do that, because a lot of agents would just want to say, hey, I'm ready for this. I can do this. And a lot of times that would end up potentially with an unhappy client, or maybe just not the same sort of outcome, because I do think that having that set of knowledge and somebody that really knows that area gives you a lot more confidence in what knowing what you don't know, and knowing, and I think that's where being professional like yourself, I think that's where that sophistication was not, hey, I'm sophisticated enough to do this. You actually had the sophistication to realize that you needed some extra hands on it to make sure you didn't let down the customer, right? And so I think that's
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I've felt this a lot of time in my real estate journey. A client calls me and says, hey, I want to look in, I don't know, Northridge, right? I think I'd only ever driven through Northridge maybe a few times in my life, maybe to
right,
head up north to NorCal or something like that, but I just don't know the neighborhood. And again, not high stakes in terms of dollar volume right out there, but definitely high stakes when it comes to someone trying to make a decision about their real estate kind of dream and investment, right, and all that. And then just kind of at a young part of my career, winging that, right, going online, looking at what are the good schools, or relative to the other schools, what are the better schools, comp data, looking at stuff like that, but always feeling like a little bit of, man, I bet though someone who's focused their career in that area and just knows neighbor, door to door, the history of sales, why this one didn't sell for so high, and why this one sold
right,
for way more than the market should have given it, and really thinking, those are the people that these clients should be entrusted with to some degree, right? Now, some of those agents may not be the most trustworthy people. They may not have a relationship with your client. And so there is that kind of gap to fill in some ways, or that needs to be bridged. And that's where you come as an agent. But yeah, I've always felt that. I always felt like, hey, if someone wants to buy in San Diego, yeah, I could do that deal. I know how the RPA works. I know how to negotiate. I know how to do comps. But there is that little X factor of an agent that just knows the neighborhood intimately, knows the people there, the lifestyle there, that neighborhood provides, and maybe some of the negative things to look out for that you can't find just by doing comp research or reading about the demographic in that
right.
area.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's conversations with you and I, we've always felt like, man, GeoFarm isn't the one thing and the only thing, right? But it is one of those like legs of the stool, so to speak, that really help your career stand on ground, right? And be
Right.
stable. It's not the end all be all, right? But
Right.
it is something we should really incorporate so that we can be those experts. And when a time comes where, a client needs the area expert for Fullerton, for Brea, for Newport Coast, for San Diego, that we would like with full confidence say, hey, not only am I sophisticated, not only am I trustworthy, not only will I work hard for you, I know this neighborhood like the back of my hand, right? And there's some
Right.
strength and value that you're giving to your client because of that.
Absolutely. No, and I think that that's where the ultimate compounding would come in. If you have a geographic area where you turn the people that live there into your SOI, and then when you get listings there, you leverage them and market them like nobody else does in that area to where you stand out like kind of a gem in that area each time you have an opportunity to serve that community with selling a house. Um, you'll learn the inventory that's not on the market yet, right? You'll know exactly what things trade at, so to speak, and have a really good sense of almost without even having to do a CMA what the value of that home might be, right? Um, and if you could make that happen in your business, then I think that's where you really have that lasting power. As a matter of fact, two agents that I know that are one of the top agents. One is probably in the top 10 in the country. One's probably in like no, still pretty good, very prominent agent in the coastal area. You know, they will both talk about how all their business or most of their business when it comes to farming comes from the fact that they just market the current listing they have. It's not like they're sending out postcards talking about how great they are or all the services they provide. They just are constantly sending out marketing that are actually marketing their listings. And that in turn shows people they're doing business, that they market listings well. And we've had agents as well in our that I've worked with in our company that do that same thing, that they have enough consistency of listings over time in an area that they're able to keep in front and top of mind just through advertising their actual listings. And that way makes it more about the listings they have. It makes it less about themselves, and people trust that more, right? They see that you're showing them you're doing business and you're not just telling them. And I think that's where that compounding effect could be the most. So I do, yeah. And again, there's also the feeling that you really want to serve your client well. And if you feel that you're not, you're winging it, right? I do believe that clients nowadays, there's so much information. Most clients do know a lot of what they're looking for better than we do, as far as the schools and which park or which coffee place they like to go to if they already know the area. But when people are coming from out of the area and they're relying on you, I think at that point, you want to make sure that you do know that area you're trying to bring them to, for
Right.
sure.
Right. And I think there's this, I don't know, for me, the way I'm wired and what makes me comfortable and uncomfortable, when you have an opportunity with the listing, it sometimes feels like not the greatest to think, hey, I'm going to use this listing for some self-serving kind of like to build my business way, right? And I did
Right.
wrestle with that also with the Newport Coast listing. But what's funny about it is my friend, who's the seller of the home, who's like, hey man, you got to use this for your benefit. You got to leverage the crap out of this, right? You should be like on newspapers talking about like all kinds of stuff. And so I had to like get out
Right.
of my comfort zone to then say, okay, well, if you're giving me the green light, I shouldn't stand in the way of that, right? In some ways, and just like kind of trip over myself and not do that. And so it was kind of a weird experience, but also a growing one for me where, okay, let's get this out into the light. We did something really good here. And it's always, again, like not, you never want to toot your own horn or like sound the alarm of
Right.
what great stuff you've done, right? But there is a way, I think, to do it in a way that is still true to yourself and not really just trying to be that salesman, right, or saleswoman,
Right.
but shares, hey, this happened, right, and it was an amazing thing, and be comfortable in that, right. So yeah, but that's always stopped me from doing it or feeling awkward about it, right? No self promoting and whatnot. It's kind of what also stops me from doing, a whole lot of social media, right? And so
Right.
in that
Right.
sense, trying to grow and kind of stretch my legs there, but also just stay true to myself and not feel like I'm always self-promoting and whatnot. And I think you brought up a good point. It's, when we do get these listings, it really isn't like, hey, come look at me. My face is on everything, right? My
Right.
name is on everything, but
Right.
no, come look at this property, right? Because this is the star of the show. This is what we're selling here. And this is the thing that's amazing. And so I think that whole experience kind of help, enlighten that in some ways, and also kind of it made me realize, just not comfortable, in a normal basis, stuff like that. But the people around me want me to be. They're okay with it. They're okay with you,
Right.
you know, I,
Yeah.
you know,
The best clients, I think, do want to see that they're enlisted in your business, right? They want to see you succeed, and they want to feel a part of that. Their agent is a successful agent, so there's sort of a self interest there as far as wanting to be, hey, my agent's great, and it makes them feel that they've picked the right person as well, so they want to see you successful. But I do think that, that's the whole idea of saying, if I am everything I'm doing is to market this listing, and that's how I get more business because of how much I pour. Similar into sphere of influence, if I say all I do is pour all my time and efforts into taking good care of you, then I know things like I don't have to worry about where my next deal's coming from because I know that people like to refer. So all I have to do is be referable, and I will get referrals. And I think that with listings in a geographical area, if all I do is pour myself into marketing the heck out of this listing and making it look beautiful, weaving a great storyline behind it and making sure that there's nobody out there that would have done a better job showpiecing this home and making this into the most attractive and desirable home. I think that if you get business from that, again, that's okay because all you're doing is there, not self promoting. And I think that's where people go wrong sometimes, right? They want to show off that they just sold something for the most amount of money, and it's more of a bragging thing versus saying, hey, just so you know, as a public information, we got a great price on this. This means that there's a lot of demand for this area. Just a heads up, right? In case you're thinking about it, it could be a great time. And not saying, not with a call to action that looks like you're soliciting, but with just that piece of information out there, because it does speak for itself. The people who get that, the people who see this agent's working hard for their clients, those are the people you want that see that value in what you're doing, versus people who respond to like low commissions, right? People that respond to this kind of direct action. Well, you're going to get a bunch of people who don't want to pay anything and don't see the value in what we do. And you're not going to get paid well enough to do a good job. You're not going to do a good job. And then pretty soon you're going to have to keep discounting to get more business, right? So these cycles of how we do business do lead to that equity and how our business evolves, right? You demand a good premium price for yourself, you get a good premium price for your customer, you continue to do a great job for people, and your business improves as such.
that's right. I think, we talk about this a lot, Matt. That's who we want at Circa. People that do that work, right? Not the one who, again, maybe just puts in the bare minimum, or gets a client to sign an agreement so they're kind of locked in, right? We want agents who would go above and beyond. I remember thinking, because people would ask me like, hey, how did you get that thing sold? Or like, what was the key to that? Because there's still other listings that are just as beautiful, if not even more like decadent, right? And crazy looking and awesome, that are still in the market now, right?
Right.
And honestly, the property itself was the key. But I remember, again, we had some agents from Circa kind of help with this. Like, we show up an hour and a half early, right? And turn everything on, pick up trash, pick up leaves, put everything in its right place, right? Check to see if there was anything new in terms of, like, I don't know, a new crack in the wall or something like that.
Right.
And spend the time. And then afterwards, we would literally take wet wipes, like clean every doorknob, right? Like every toilet, what do you call it, lever, right? Just to make sure that the family, when they came back, they'd feel like their house wasn't disturbed, or have that kind of feeling of, oh, this is nicer than when we left it, right? Or it's more tidy,
Right.
it's cleaner, right? And I think, in my own mind, and I don't know, again, in my own mind, that is what got the thing sold, right?
Right.
And flyer is a flyer, MLS pictures are MLS pictures, videos are videos, but what are the things that you're doing kind of even behind the scenes to make sure that this thing is it's in its best shape, and that you're putting in the service that you need to do, to make sure this is going to go well, right?
Right.
And a lot of those are things that are just not seen, right? They're things
Yeah.
that never be seen. I'm talking about now, but I don't know if anyone knew that we were doing that, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah, and maybe the temptation when you have a big listing, or a listing you're really proud of, is to be more of a superstar. You want to be the guy that's like, oh yeah, come look at my listing, look at me, right? Look how great I am, look how great my list, and there's a lot of
Right.
temptation to do that, of course. But what why we started this company, Matt, and why we bonded in a lot of ways, is we weren't looking for those people, right? We were looking for people to do the hard work, do the dirty work, do the tireless, thankless hours of work, that then leads to success.
Right. Right. Well, that's where it's a battle. Like, you try to train on these things to show people it will pay off for them, but you don't want to train it that this is why you're doing it, so it pays off for you. You want to train them that they get it to where you do this because you love this and you're passionate about it and you love doing a great job. And yes, it'll come from there. It's similar. I was watching, I don't know if you watched the show Bear, but it's about a chef that's doing something. But the episode recently that I watched was about like this. He sends one of the guys that's not a very motivated guy to do what they're doing to like one of the top restaurants. And he's spending like a week just shining forks and making sure there's no streaks on them.
Mm.
And he gets kind of taken to task by the guy managing him of just like how much he loves this, and like he's doing this because he loves this. And and the other guy's just kind of not getting it, right? He's just there because it's like he's being told to be there for a job. And I think that's where trying to get people to understand that if you're not, you have to love this and be passionate about and doing those extra things when no one's looking, right? And that's where the excellence kind of, it's felt, even if it's not seen what you did, they kind of know you did it, right? They kind of feel that you did that, and that's where other people want to work with you because they know that's the kind of level that you're gonna, have your standards set to.
100%. And I think in those like off screen or out of the public eye, or things that no one else is going to see, type things that you do, really help build you in an authentic fashion, right? We could all kind of recite the script, the winning script, we could all kind of like play out the playbook, right? But I think when you come across people, clients potentially that are sophisticated, that are well learned, that have traveled, very quickly who's putting on a show. And you could tell pretty quickly from someone's just natural, authentic, energy, if you want to call it that,
Right.
this person is someone with some depth, right? Some real, something really trustworthy about them, right? And that's what we hope everyone becomes, is someone that has that really authentically, versus learning the like words to say, or the actions, or even the like physical, like how do we build trust type things you can learn in a book, like or like in a seminar, right? And
Right.
really become that person who is trustworthy, who works hard, who is sophisticated, and that comes across more in not verbal ways even,
Yeah.
that then people catch, right? And that trust is built that way. So
Right. Yeah.
so
And
yeah,
that's
and yeah,
okay. No, go ahead.
no, I think that's we were talking about compounding effect, right?
Right.
And how do you compound, in a service business that always just seems cyclical, right? Like how do you compound your business? And it is those tangible things you can do, right? You put up 3 circles, the the geofarm, the SOI, and then the leveraging your listing stuff. So these things we need to do them. But I think having also that kind of underlying trustworthiness, high commitment to service, sophistication, and a commitment to that, then helps you compound in a very natural way as well, right? You
Right.
see people like, yeah, buying the magic script for like cold calling. And they're like,
Right.
man, if I just run hours and hours on this script, I'm going to get X amount of business. And you realize sometimes, yes, you'll get that business in through the door, but will they work with you again? I'm
Right.
not sure. Who knows? Right. But if you have that magic script and you kind of close again the leak in the bucket or the hole in the bucket, and you have a way to compound it, right, by following up with them in a very authentic way and making sure you continue a relationship. Um, I think that's what we're looking for. That's what we want to bet on and say, hey, this person's going to be in for the long haul, and they have a long, probably successful career in real estate coming.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, and I think that's the compounding that yeah, we should touch on is the compounding of skill sets, the compounding of the value you bring, the compoundingness of your knowledge. You can build upon knowledge, you can build upon, and when I say skill sets, I mean skill sets. People probably already think it's about getting the sale, but skill sets are how to communicate well, how to negotiate well, how to tell a story well for a home, how to answer questions well when a prospective buyer is interested in a home, right? Those skill sets that you can compound on from always trying to up your game. And I think that in itself will allow you to bring you know allow you to, when you're at that moment where it could go either way because of there maybe your competitive situation, they're talking to another agent, they're kind of feeling you out, that you'll win by substance of who you are and the value you bring, rather than that you said the right clever tagline at the right moment, right? And I think that's where people don't understand, is that most of the time, if you're at a moment of truth where you're really in a competitive situation with a sophisticated individual that has real value to bring to your business, it's most likely the substance that you bring over the clever one-liner that you bring that's going to end up winning the business for you, and winning that client. And I think some people learn that the hard way, right? And it's a shame, because it's the right way to do things, and it's the better way to do things, and it's the more profitable long-term way to do this. But people often try to shortcut, and it keeps them always having to continue to hustle rather than get to a point where, and it's taught that in society. I mean, in the world history, farmers won out over hunters for sustaining societies, right? Once we learned how to put a seed in the ground, those societies flourished. And it's the same thing. You plant seeds, long term, you're gonna have value, and if you don't, so
Right.
yeah. But okay. So speaking of which, with this, the market right now, right? A lot of uncertainty. I'm trying to make sure we stay on task here with the things. So where are we at here? So the market, really, we didn't want to. So the market right now, right? We talk about the market all the time, and we talk about macroeconomics, how it affects things, and how we can look at the real estate numbers locally. We can look at it nationally, and the numbers vary to some degree, right? But most importantly, I think what we can understand is like we know for sure what's happened, and we're in a down market, and a lot of people are feeling that. A lot of our agents are feeling that. A lot of agents throughout the industry, not only agents, people in the title business, people in the escrow business, everybody's feeling it, that get fed by real estate, home sales. And what people want to know is what's going to happen next. And some people have decided, I'm not going to care what happens next. I'm just keep my head down and working. And I think people fluctuate between those two things. So as far as the macroeconomics, we talked something about the yield curve, right? And I think let me see if I can put that up here. Do you want to talk about this for a second, as far as what explains this?
Sure. I won't explain it too much.
Okay.
I would say, hey, when you have a free moment, learn about the yield curve. It's a pretty important economic indicator. But what I will point out in this chart is you see that it's going up and down pretty regularly, sometimes really high, sometimes really low. And then what I want to key you in on is right there where it says like 2005 and a little bit before it, you see this tremendous kind of rise in the yield curve, and then a downturn right around 2004, 2005. I think you could say that the day or the month that curve inverted was, was April 2007. And I was working at a mortgage banker at the time, and I remember how quickly the market changed in terms of, the appetite for mortgages in the secondary market and with Wall Street. And from there, although, again, 2007, April was probably the peak of the market in terms of price and all that. You can see that the corresponding yield curve here was headed downward, almost alarming people that something was going to happen. And so if you look at 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, it really was 2007, 2008 where that yield curve bottomed out and then started to go back up. For us, we're in a very similar environment. Down means, something's coming, a correction is coming. Up means probably we're in the correction here, right? So if we look forward then to 2020, you can see that yield curve is going up. There's a tremendous amount of like pressure building because the economy was doing so well. And then it's starting to trend downward, right? Which tells you that probably there's kind of some hardship coming. And again, it's a very simplistic way to look at it. Some people don't like it because it's too simplistic. But it tells you that probably there's some type of correction coming. How long, how hard, we don't know, right?
Right.
But seems like that inversion's been going on for quite a while. And a correction on that yield curve will come.
Yeah.
So,
and I'll say, when we say correction, we're not necessarily saying real estate home correction only, but just in general the markets, right? In some sort of correction of at least that it's not there's not going to be as much liquidity to lend and to put money into growth for the economy, right? The way it is my simplistic understanding, but like essentially it's people that are betting more on the long term than the short term, right?
that's right.
And so it's almost could be a self-fulfilling prophecy, because what it does is it tightens up lending from banks, because banks like to take our money, give us short-term small percentages, and then lend that money for long-term larger percentages of gain. Whereas now they're going to have to pay us more money in the short term and lend for longer for less money. And so it's not the way banks want to stimulate the economy by lending, right? Because that's essentially how our economy gets stimulated is banks put out money out there through lending activity to stimulate either growth in companies, into growth in real estate, because when they lend us mortgages at 2-3%, it stimulates home prices and buyer activity. So I think what we see is that there's going to be a sort of a tightening, right? At some point that could be something that they call the recession. Now we know recession doesn't always mean home prices go down, doesn't always mean market crash. It has sometimes, it has not other times, maybe more times. And people use that chart a lot from Keeping Current Matters that shows like 5 out of the last 6 recessions didn't turn into home correction, right? But it doesn't mean that it won't be after this 5 out of 7. It could be that 6 out of 7 after, if there's a recession here. But I think that to try to give tone deaf advice, I guess, is what we don't want people to do, right? Is to be as transparent, as open about, that about their advice about real estate markets and macro, and have some education behind it, right? Because you could be speaking to that more sophisticated person, and you sound foolish to them because you're not giving a broad perspective. You're giving very simplistic ideas about the market, and we know that low inventory has really been the story as far as keeping home prices high, because no matter how low demand would get, supply is even worse, right? So in natural economic terms, when supply is so much lower than demand, it's always going to keep the price of those goods higher. But yeah, I think it's just to take that off there. But I think that it's just important for people to know these things a little bit, have a cursory understanding of the macro environment that affects housing, Again, if you want to be a person who brings value to more sophisticated clientele, right? And I think that's good to know. Um, but go
I'd say
ahead.
also, like, what's the messaging here then for our agents, let's say, for people still trying to do business in this market, low inventory, high interest rates. It's tough, right? People have slowed down. Businesses, some of Asian business has been dwindled down by even 80%, right? Year on
Right.
year. So it's a tough market. How do we navigate this? Do we just take a long vacation and come back when things are good? I don't think so, right? There's still activity to be had here. There's still real estate, sales that need to
Yeah.
happen. And so, but I think it's guiding people through it, not being tone deaf, right? And just taking the sound clips you hear on Instagram or social media, and then using that as the like sales mantra, like, hey, blah 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 blah. That's why you should buy a house, right?
Right.
Right. But to really understand a client's need, what their goal is, what the market is doing, and see if there's little ways you can hack for them the market and a purchase.
Yeah, well, that's exact. I mean, the timing for their personal lives, right? You don't want to try to time the market, uh, because that's where people try to predict. A lot of times, like we say, a bull market in the real estate where it goes longer than people expected, right? Some people were trying to sold in 2019 because they thought this is the top, and then something unexpected like COVID happens, and sorry, you just probably left a lot of money on the table because you try to time the top. And then people try to time the bottom and think right now, some people are saying, oh, well, this 7% interest rate, I know rates are going to go down to 4.5. That's my gut feeling. That's my cousin telling me in the next 6 months. So I can afford the 7% payment for the next 6 months till it goes to 4.5. Then I'm going to refinance and everything's going to be fine. And it's like, that's, you know, that's great if that happens, but I hope you can afford that 7% interest payment for a couple years, at least. I would say things are going to last longer than you think they're going to, usually, right? And so I think that this where we are right now, the interest rate climate, everybody's hoping for to see like the rates tick down this last week because the inflation came good, and that's great, and we're hoping that continues. And if it does, it's reasonable to think rates will continue to come down. But there's always other shoes to drop and things that can happen, and we just can't predict those things. And there's so many macro variables that can affect the decision making for the powers that be to do certain things. So I think it's just trying to time the market is what I try to advise people against. But I do think try to time your life. You want to make sure that you're living the life you want to live. And so to me, we're in this business because we believe in real estate. We believe it typically is going to go up. We believe you'll end up, no one's ever had 30 years been underwater after 30 years of owning during that time period, right? It's going to be there. And I think that making sure you're living the lifestyle you want, because homeownership as a homeowner, knowing the lifestyle that offers me and my family, in my case, I have a family, it's not a monetary decision, right? It's a life decision, it's a lifestyle decision. And I think that's where the benefits of homeownership, are often left out when you're talking just about economics, right? Like, it's how about just owning a piece of this earth, and or the rights to it at least, and there's a value there, right? There's some value there.
Yeah, and I want to like kind of point to a video that one of our agents made, Ryan Tan. He made a really cool kind of reel on Instagram about house hacking.
Right.
I thought that was super cool. Like, you could still, again, hack in this market by taking some of the rooms you're not using, and buying a 3-bedroom home and renting out to some roommates, or turning your garage into an ADU, and creating a little bit of a better monthly payment for yourself by bringing in some of that income. But it does take some of our like sucking up some of like our preconceived like beliefs or like must-haves, right? I'd say all the way to maybe even considering moving out of state, right? We've talked about this a lot. We
Right.
started doing these trips at Circa called Cultural Connect trips, where we recently went to Austin to check out the real estate, because there's been such a buzz in Austin, and it looks like the prices there have dipped to a point where now it's getting attractive again to consider buying there. but everyone speaks really highly of the lifestyle there, right?
Right.
The quality of life, the school districts, the fact that you don't have state tax there, income tax, right?
Right.
These type of things. But a lot of times you hear people in California, especially Southern California, talk about, no, I'm never moving. I'm going to stay right here in my 5 mile radius from where I grew up, or Fullerton, or the supermarket that I absolutely need to be around, or whatever it is,
Right.
right? But not realizing, hey, there's a whole like lifestyle you can be living very abundantly, very, again, hits maybe all the little things in your checkbox in terms of how you wanted to live life, right? School districts, size of home, pool, right? Like this type of neighborhood, I want to be by a lake, like all these things. And so, we started saying a phrase like, you can't let the California dream get in the way of the American dream.
Right.
I believe that's true. And I think really what it comes down to for some people is, one, you have to put down those, like, I don't know, holy grail beliefs, or like those dogmas in your mind. Like, no, it's not better than California, right? Like
Right.
that's
Right.
kind of what we're trained to think when we're here. But really take a step and venture and explore that. And then two, I think it's going to take an advisor, again, a real estate agent who's trusted, that can then say, hey, I know you're thinking about selling here, and I know you probably are really excited about, getting one extra bedroom, for $400,000 more than what you'd pay for this house, and then interest rates being now in the sixes and the sevens, right? But have you considered moving to this part of the country where you can get 2 extra bedrooms at a lower price than what you would sell at, right? And here's a monthly payment on that. Here's a lifestyle you can live. Here's schools, right? I myself have seen that area and can attest to its greatness. We've made great connections with agents in that area that know that place like the back of their hands, and we can totally kind of put you in the care of someone that will walk you through that decision and really help you see some real estate, and really get the lifestyle out there. And so I think it's more stuff like that, the house hacking, the talking
Right.
intelligibly to people about places to live and lifestyles they can afford elsewhere for like half price what they're paying here in California sometimes,
Yeah.
and really being that bridge that then, keeps you relevant and keeps like deals flowing for you, right? Rather than just doing the same old, what do you call it, dog and pony show, right?
Right.
Um, and relying on that in a market like this. So yeah, and that's what we hope we become. That's what we want to train on, right? And that's what we hope people start to become. But we've been kind of in this circuit journey now a year, Matt, right? We
Yeah.
put out some excellent trainings, and I have to say, like, Matt's trainings are I think maybe the best I've ever heard, right?
Thank you
And
there.
and yeah, he's putting out this great content, but it always boils down to, hey, we as people in the industry, agents who know that they could be doing more with their time and career. I know I need to go do this. I know I need to focus on this and pick a geo farm, or I know I need to like implement a CRM, right, and an email marketing system. Like, ultimately, we know all these things, right, and we kind of take it in one year and it goes out the other a lot of times. It's almost a liken to like, hey, I know I need to work out, right? I know like I got these back pains, and if I just did these 3 exercises, like it would really help my back pain. But I'm gonna go to the gym and just do bicep curls, right? That's what I know. That's what I stick to, right? And that's kind of got me to this point. And so, yeah, I think what like the encouragement we want to give to agents is, look, the pain you have in your business, and probably, and you've heard many times what it's going to take to get that pain off you, right, or to solve that
Right.
pain in some ways. Now, we hope that just like you would in the gym, you wouldn't just go there and do the bicep curls, but you really explore other exercises to make sure that your business is in good shape, right? And
Right.
that you are navigating these kind of uncertain times in the best way possible and beating the market, because you are putting that extra work, extra effort, taking the time to do some self-realization, right? And game planning around what.
Lost Dave for a second here. I'm gonna keep going for a second here. Um, to play on that gym analogy. Sorry, the gym analogy though. I want to play on that a little bit more, and just to say, um, if the other thing you do besides the biceps is watch YouTube video after YouTube video of people telling you how to get your back better, but never going and doing it, or trying these quick fix things, right? Like I'm gonna just buy this thing and it fix my back, um, rather than just doing the fundamental things will work, right? And it's sometimes the not sexy stuff, because doing something working at your back is not exactly going to show in the in your beach body, right? But the point is that there are things that you need to do that are fundamental, and I think that's where absolutely is my biggest fear always for any agent or any entrepreneur, is just listening to way too many people about what they need to do, instead of finding someone who's done it, finding someone who really cares about them and is not just trying to self promote themselves, but really cares about their growth, and listen to those people, and then do the hard work of executing on those things. Um, and I just always fear that people are going after gimmick after gimmick, and it's such a killer of morale, because you're not seeing results, and it's such a killer of time and energy that could be put towards just doing the work that we know works, just doing the work that we know results, and building on yourself. And that's the other thing, is the value that people bring by like these trips we go on. I've always looked at my life that I'm always trying to work on improving myself, right? Like the Darren Hardy thing, where he says someone can write in a journal their perfect spouse, but until you write in the journal what does that person want in a spouse, you're never going to get that spouse, right? You need to be the person that attracts the customers. You need to invest in yourself to be the person who attracts that luxury property. You need to that's what people want to shortcut, is their own personal development sometimes. And that's where it seems like maybe something going on a trip like this is not. But you and I both know that travel has been one of the most impactful ways we've grown as people. If you travel properly, right, you get to know the people. You get into the fabric of that place you're at. You can go to a tourist resort and not grow one bit. You might get some relaxation, but you're not. But if you get in with the people there, if you learn and you really are there to grow, and you're traveling, meeting new people, see new ways of life, it really does impact you. I mean, I'll even say when we went to Austin, um, it's something. It's such a simple observation, and it's almost like surprising that like it's almost embarrassing, but hey, there's roots here. This isn't just all people flying from California here. This is a town that has just as much pride as any city in California. They have so much belief in their lifestyle as much as we do in California. Californians can be a little snobby about, oh, we got the beach, we got the mountains, we got whatever else you think is cool, right? But the point is that they've got just as many things they hang their hats on. Barbecue. I mean, that they have a real downtown there to some extent, right? There's a lot of things going on and that's cursory kind of thing, but there's a lot of things going on everywhere. And if you don't get out there and see that, you sort of become like centric in your mind about, what we have is better. And I think that's what we're talking about, that American dream, that it might happen somewhere else for some people. And we need to support that and encourage that, if that's what's right for people. And like for instance, the beach, I think I've been to Hawaii beaches probably at a ratio of 10-1 in my life, because I never go to the beach here, right? I mean, I go once a year, maybe, if something draws me there, right? I mean, you live in the coast, so you drive by the beach every day, but the point is, if you're not living that lifestyle, if you're not living on the coast, what's the difference where you're living? And I think that's where people need to think about their options, and we need to be, like I always say, you need to know options for people, and being able to experience those options and seeing them firsthand, I think does bring a lot of value to those conversations. Yeah.
100%. 100%. Yeah. Well said. It's not a shameless plug, but we are going to Nashville, Tennessee soon here. Would love for you guys to join us. And so, yeah, but I love that. I love that about Circa. I love that about Matt. I think that's why we connect so well, is, I feel like we have a great group of people that are willing to, one, do the work, do the hard work, be relational, but then just find ways to personally grow. right? I think probably, if we put broker calls aside, right, deal calls aside, I want to say a lot of the conversation is around, yeah, how do I get better? How do I just become a better, not just agent, but a better connector, right?
Right.
Right, a better student, right, a better person of action. Like these are the things that people, at Circa really kind of, again, interested in, and that feels great to be around, right? And Matt also, again, the whole travel thing. I know it's the fact that you quite a bit, me as well, and it's weird how sometimes like presuppositions or prejudgments would get in the way of us really seeing what's out there and experiencing it for ourselves, and then really taking in what we think, what our opinion is on that, but yeah, I feel like if you go anywhere in the country, you can find great things, right? Even in the most remote parts, and find people who are thriving. And so it's not all just California, or Southern Cal, Southern Cal, Southern Cal.
Right.
There's amazing places to live throughout the country and throughout the world, right? If you'd be open to it. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think I think that's it. I think if we can just maybe sum up here, we're getting towards. I think that mindset that we need to have in this market is one of building equity right now. If you don't think about it, how do I get more deals right now? How do I? And I know, don't get me wrong, that's okay to feel that way, because a lot of people are down in their business, or a lot of people aren't growing the way they wanted to grow this year because of the market conditions. But rather than think of it through a lens of how do I get more deals, think of it, how do I build more equity right now? How do I take the right action every day to build more equity in who I am and my personal development and growth? How do I have more equity in the neighborhoods I serve? How do I have more equity in the people and the relationships that I have with my past clients and people in my life, and build that equity? And that will be a long-term approach. And you might set yourself apart in a significant way, because it'll be a more substantive way of doing business, and people sense that and feel that, and they want to feel connected to people who are real pros at what they do, but also that care about them, and they feel connected, that this person's going to look after me and do the right thing for me. And I think if you build that messaging into what you're doing, and just build it into your DNA of who you are, I think that's the best thing you could be doing right now. So
100%. And I'd say, connect with us, right? I think
right,
the more we hear from you, how you'd like to grow and up your game, the better it is for us, and the better we can shape trainings and kind of gatherings around it, because we genuinely want to see people grow, and this is one of those times where it's a tremendous opportunity to grow, right? Maybe we're not as busy as we once were, so we have time to go on vacation and enjoy, and kind of take some time off, but really to up our game and be ready, and again, even find deals in this market in a good, sophisticated way, not just like a salesman way or whatever it is, but where you add value to people and help them along their kind of real estate path, right? So
right.
yeah, I'd love for you to connect with us, and I don't know, I would love to hear from you guys too, and maybe put this in the chat, or you email us on what you guys would like covered in these broker brews, and what topics maybe we like covered, and we'll do our research on them and try to bring some value to you about those topics.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Please do put in the comments. Let us know. And yeah, we'll be happy to touch on those. And, but yeah, thanks all for joining us today, and I'm excited about more of these in the future, and how we can bring a little bit of, hopefully substance and value to you. But yeah, thanks everyone. See you
Have
guys
a great
soon.
weekend.